Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is Jeffrey Gall with Genetic Lifespan, and today we have a special guest, and this is our partner and expert behind our exclusive AgeCode test. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, and we just had a couple, three things that we wanted to cover today for our listeners for some clarity, exactly how we're different and what we're doing. But before we do that, can you maybe give the audience a little bit about your background since you're really an expert in this whole DNA genetic epigenetic world?
Yeah, sure. No problem, Jeff. So, my background is 25 years in the field of genomics, ranging from, the benign fields of ancestry, though many people, used it and loved it, but all the way to the hard sciences with carrier screening, pharmacogenomics, oncology, and through that partnered with governments and healthcare systems throughout the world, which has given me a massive background in just the field in general, enabling these type of services or these type of products to be created with partners such as yourself.
Great. And obviously this is a unique product. I mean, that was one of the things when we met almost 30 months ago and decided to create this. We wanted something that nobody else had that can be combined, that can be packaged in a specific way that really gave tremendous value. And so maybe you can talk about kind of what, since you know most of the companies out there and you may have consulted and helped many of them in the past. How is age code different from most other, if not all other tests that are available today?
One of the major things that separates age code from the general products. People are very familiar with DNA technology in general. DNA in general, though, is static. There is no changes to your genome, at least general changes. Not most of us aren't going to space, so there's no real changes that will affect your overall life and health and things of this nature. And so when people look at DNA, they see what they're predisposed to. They see what we could have answered when you were a 1 year old baby. The fact that you're 50 years old today didn't change anything. And when we all talked at the beginning of this project, we were like, how can we make it so that we can give active changes to people's lifestyles that can have real applications, not just, hey, you're predisposed to this or this or this. They already know. Most people already know they're lactose intolerant. They don't need to know that type of information. What they need to know is, are they taking too much lactose or too much X, Y, and Z? And so we started out building this product with that guise. And though we do integrate some predispositions into the product in general, we really focused on how we can give active, real time information to patients that are measurable and that can have large impact on their life. And so by taking a person's blood and using that to determine what is going on from the methylome, which is something that is produced by all your lifestyle effects. What are those? Those are nature, those are nurture. Those factors are also food, diet, exercise. Smoking is even a factor when it comes to the methylome. And so all these things are taken into account to create a unique product that we can advise almost anyone in the world on.
Okay, great. You kind of touched a little bit on something, and this becomes, it's like they say, no two tests are the same, and it really all starts at the source. There's cheek swab tests out there, there's finger prick on a dry blood card test, and then there's wet blood, which is what we actually use. And you talked about methylome and people throw out this term methylation, and I know there's some confusion in that. So maybe you can help our listeners understand the difference and then why we're doing what we're doing
Sure.
with the wet blood and methylation.
Sure. So it's a good question. So, in general, any type of source from the human body will have a small amount of the methylome in it. That's just an in general fact. But all it can have in presence within that sample will be what it touched. So, why is the cheek swab versus a blood swab so different? The cheek cells, the cells that make up the epithelial cells inside of the mouth, are generated inside the mouth. What that means is only things that touched the mouth itself will be present in that methylome. So we will be able to know, for example, if someone is a heavy smoker. But what we will not be able to know is any information about internal organs, the kidneys, the liver, the heart. All of these things will be excluded when you look at a sample coming from the cheek. So this is one of the reasons that when we started working together and we wanted the broadest ability to affect lifestyle, we said we needed to go to the blood itself, because that blood goes through all those organs and gets residual background information that we can detect and read from the blood and from the methylome. And the difference between the methylation and methylome, it's complicated. Many people find it confusing because they sometimes use these words interchangeably. The methylome is the result of all of those things that we talked about earlier, the lifestyle, the things of this nature. And to make that happen, you methylate it. In other words, your methylation produces the methylome. And we're reading the methylome as if it's like a genome, as if it is just a history of your most recent life.
So then someone the other big question is, you only do methylation once, it never changes. Now, we know that about genetic predisposition. Like you said, you can check your genome at 1 year old or 50 years old, and it's the same, unless maybe you went out to space or something weird happened to you. But actual methylation is related to epigenetics, which means it changes constantly over time based on lifestyle choices. Would that be a correct statement?
Well, once again, yeah. So the end result of the methylation is going to change. So I'll give a great example. One of the most common tests that are run from a DNA perspective is on a gene called MTHFR. It's an extremely important mutation or gene itself, because the most important factor on MTHFR is the digestion of folic acid. Folic acid is the most common ingredient in a prenatal vitamin that women will take when they intend to or are currently pregnant. And women are recommended to take approximately 500 milligrams of folic acid generally. But if you have a mutation in this gene, you will digest the folic acid at a lower rate. And so as a result, doctors are suggesting that you take a higher dose. But that's all they know. They simply say you should take more because you'll digest it less. But there's no empirical data on how effective that is without looking at the methylome itself. See, I can look at a woman and say, yes, you have that mutation. You're predisposed to essentially methylating that, digesting or utilizing the folic acid at a lower rate. But in your blood downstream, you're good. There's no reason to have that extra boost because you are fine. And that's why we're looking at the methylation, the methylome itself, because we're getting a combination both of the predisposition and the facts of the person's lifestyle. Obviously, folic acid is not the best example simply because most foods don't have folic acid. But when you're looking at all the other vitamins, it's possible that a person may be predisposed to not be a very good digester of vitamin D, but their lifestyle is they're a hiker or a cyclist. And so they're always outside, which means that they don't need supplements. And pigeonholing to just a predisposition will mean that you could have negative impacts without knowing what the true impact on the person itself. Precision medicine is only done via combination of both predisposition and factually what the person is today.
That's great information, and it makes total sense. You really want to know where you are and lifestyle. And again, it's epigenetics, and I think the discussion of epigenetics these days, as people do understand, 75% of expression of those cells and genes is based on lifestyle choices. So, which means it can alter and it can change, which is
Correct.
why you would retest in 6 months or so, just to see if what's happening at this point in your life.
Correct. So retesting is actually a good use of confirmation. You know, all of us slip. We all make our New Year's resolution to go to the gym more and all of these different New Year's resolutions. And if, as psychologically speaking, if there isn't anything that's going to prove that I did it right or remind me I've been doing something wrong, we miss out on those things. So retesting is so valuable because not only do we see the areas that we have successfully improved on, but it tells us the areas that we can still improve on. And just because we improved doesn't mean we can't improve more. And the better we understand those changes, the better we can have a cleaner, healthier lifestyle in the future.
So it goes down to what we've always said: you don't know what you don't know. So once we know, we could start making those positive decisions, working that right. It really gives us back control of our health destiny, or our health span destiny, or quality of life, because we now have a great blueprint.
Correct, exactly. And this is just you know the first step. Obviously, post these type of tests, there's going to be supplements. There's going to be the need for you to get exercise, change your diet. All those are additional things. This is just the gateway to modifying your lifestyle in a more healthier direction.
Excellent. And one of the other questions that has come up when we look at what we're doing methylation wise, in comparison to, you'll hear people say, well, I went to the doctor for my physical and they gave me a micronutrient test, which is a standard blood serum diagnostics test where they're measuring what's in your blood. And now they're saying, some of them are saying this is an extracellular blood test or an intracellular blood test. Um, how is that different than what we're looking at, micronutrients and epigenetics through methylation?
Sure. So it's a very interesting question actually, because um, the what does a blood test at your typical blood lab look for? What they look for is let's just go with calcium, for example. What it's looking for is the amount of calcium in the blood itself. So what they do is they spin it down, the particulates, they measure the amount of calcium in the blood. And that doesn't tell you really anything factual in terms of your body's utilization of that. It's correlative. That's true. The fact that you have calcium in your blood means that your cells have an opportunity to utilize that calcium. If you didn't have any calcium in your blood, you clearly would know that your cells don't have the opportunity. But what we are doing is we're looking inside those cells and determining what has happened. So we now know that the your cells took in some calcium and had an optimal amount of calcium within the cell. And this is a huge difference because it doesn't matter necessarily if you have a low amount of calcium if you're getting enough calcium. In my personal case, it's actually quite interesting. I have a vitamin D deficiency, and vitamin D uh, helps digest calcium. And so when they measure me for my levels and my serum levels, I always come back with a normal amount of calcium and a low vitamin D. And I'm like, if I have a normal amount of calcium and low vitamin D, what does that mean? And the doctor's like, well, it looks green here. And I'm like, just because it looks green doesn't mean it's right. If I would have had a normal amount of vitamin D, I'd be low on calcium because vitamin D helps digest calcium. And we would not have that logical leap put in front of the doctor if we would have then looked at our methylation pattern. We would have seen you don't get enough calcium inside your cells. And my goodness, there's probably a reason for that. So I take vitamin supplements, but you get the direction where we're going here. I don't care about what is available. I care about what you're actually using.
Which is what's important. The old school of thought used to be you are what you eat, and the reality is you are what you absorb.
Correct. That is a beautifully accurate statement.
Exactly. Elliot, as we close out our quick call here this afternoon, is there anything you would add as to why everybody should take this age code test right now?
I think that America in general, we have a problem with health. And I think anything that we can do to help move the needle in a more healthy direction is something that we should do as soon as possible. And this is something that is going to not only save lives, but it will save overall money for a long period of time. The health crisis in America, obesity, and things of this nature causes immense amount of sickness and immense amount of pain. And I think that taking these type of tests can help alleviate that for a majority of people. And the earlier you do that, the faster and the better the intervention will be. And so in the end of the day, I think that this is kind of one of those few required steps that people need to get the kick in the pants, so to speak, to really get them on the right direction.
Thank you. Well, I want to remind everybody that's listening, get back to the individual who shared this audio with you. You're going to go to geneticlifespan.com/, and they will give you what the name of their site is. Take the first step to taking control of your health destiny. We look forward to seeing you achieving your highest potential. Thank you.